Hey, it's like us with Brian, and you're here with me. Yes. And today I want to talk about some of the different deals that you guys sent us. So we had our event this week and made a bunch of live seller calls on Monday. Those are always super exciting. Now, if you sent leads, could you do me a big favor and send me a follow-up email today and just tell me the number of leads you sent, and then I can follow up more easily with you on those leads. So we got some great leads. We had a great calling session. We closed 4 deals during the session, and we got to do some really cool deal structuring. But one thing became very clear, and I want to talk about price ranges. So when you are dealing with different price ranges, it weighs certain parts of the deal differently. So I'm going to compare. Let's say some of your areas the houses are expensive. It's not unusual to find a house that's $400,000 or $500,000. Okay, and how does that compare to if you're looking at a house that's $100,000? Okay. And some of you guys would have to go outside of your local area to find nice houses that people would want to live in, nice families would want to live in for 100 grand. But let's compare the two. Now, one has a big advantage in the fact that over time you're going to be able to gain more equity. One has the advantage of you're probably going to be able to get in there a lot less expensive, and the sellers are going to be a little less sophisticated, and you'll probably be able to make better deals. Okay, and that's the different price ranges. So if you're looking in the 100,000, I'd almost say like the 50 to $100,000 price range. The plus side of that is those are usually very good cash flowing properties if you found the right area. Okay, now in Detroit, we can get in the right area, we can actually get $1,200 a month for a property that is a 50 to 70 or $80,000 property. We can get $1,200 to $1,500 a month. Now I want you to find a city that you can do that, and usually it's these more developed cities that have a lot of industry where there's plenty of good paying jobs around. And so you can find $100,000 house sometimes. Now it's easier to find a spread because why? Because interest rates. So let's look at $100,000 house. Let's pretend you had a 5% interest rate right now. Now obviously the rate's a little higher than that right now. It used to be quite a bit lower than that. But if you're looking at a 5% rate, which let's say it's an average, how much interest are you going to pay on a $100,000 house per year? You're going to pay roughly 5 grand or about $400 a month. Okay, so let's remember that $100,000 house. How much interest are you going to pay at 5% per year or per month? About $400. Okay, so that means when you add taxes and insurance, that'll probably go up to 500 or 550, something like that on a $100,000 house. So your payment, let's go 600. Let's say it's $600. So 600 month payment on a $100,000 house. There's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to find somebody who will rent that from you for at least a grand, leaving you a $400 a month spread. And it's highly likely that if you have a $100,000 house, you may be able to rent it for $1,200 to $1,500 if you found the right area. Okay, so that means you can get in, and even if you have to come up with 20% down to buy it. Now we always like to get seller financing, but even if you have to come up with 20% down to buy it, that would still mean that you would still have that $500 a month spread. Now let's look at a $500,000 property. What if you're paying a 5% interest rate on a $500,000 property? How much interest are you paying per year there? $25,000. So that means that on a $500,000 house, you're going to probably pay at 5% interest. You're going to be paying about 2 grand a month, 2 grand a month in interest on a $500,000 house. So you better know what you can get for a $500,000 house in your market. Can you get, $3,000 a month? You better be able to get $3,000 a month for $500,000 house, or probably it's not going to make sense unless, guess what? There are a bunch of people who bought those $500,000 houses when they were cheaper, and also they got some good interest rates. What if they got a 3% interest rate? That means they're only paying $15,000 or about $2,000 or about, what is that? Like $1,300 a month in interest instead of $2,000. like $700 less per month in interest. It's wild. So that's why I don't want you to shun those more expensive homes, because some of those sellers are the most desperate ones. Because right now, for someone to buy their house, they have to pay a higher interest rate. So the buyers in that higher price range are sitting on the sidelines waiting for rates to go down. So you got some motivated sellers in those price ranges. So I want you to call those, and you can even target ones that were bought in the years when the rates were low, like 2019, 2020, 2021, when the rates were like 3%. You can actually search for houses that were bought in those years. Some of your software programs will even let you search by the mortgage interest rate. You can actually put in there, I want only houses that have a mortgage of 3 to 4%. Okay, so that's the way to buy those more expensive houses. Now, obviously, either one, you're looking for a $500 a month spread. And that's kind of the crazy thing. Whether you're buying a $500,000 house or a $50,000 house, you're still looking for a $500 a month positive cash flow. Okay, so why would you gravitate towards the more expensive homes? Because what's the most equity? Over a long time, if you hang on to this property for a long time, if it's a buy and hold cash flow strategy property, and you hold it for a long time, what's going to happen? You're eventually going to pay it off. Okay, so let's say it's all paid off. Well, if it's all paid off, how much equity do you have in it? If it's a $200,000 house, you got $200,000 in equity. If it's a $300,000 house, you got $300,000 in equity. But if it's a $100,000 house or a $75,000 house, the most equity you're ever going to have on that house is 75 or 100, even if you hold it forever. Okay, and so that's why I do like the more expensive homes if you can find them with seller financing. The drawback of the more expensive homes is it's harder to get them to cash flow, because that seller already has a payment on that $500,000 house. They already have a payment of $3,500, and you can only get $3,000 a month for that house. See, so at a certain point, there's kind of a breaking point on the interest rate, and it's usually around $300,000 to $400,000, where it gets to the point where you can't buy a house and put a mortgage on it for what you can rent it for. Okay, so the rent is not even going to cover your payment at a certain point with these mortgages, unless you get a really low interest rate or manage to get one subject to by targeting properties like that with low interest rates. And I'm telling you, these sellers don't even know they're sitting on a gold mine. They just assume whoever's buying their house is going to get a new mortgage. So they figured, well, I have to sell. I had a really good 3% interest rate on this mortgage, but of course that's just going to go away when I sell my house and I get paid off. Not necessarily. And that's where you're educating these sellers. You're saying, you got an amazing rate. Look at that rate. Why not use that existing mortgage? Why go out there and get a new mortgage where we'd be paying $1,000 more than what you're paying? That doesn't make any sense. So we're just going to use the existing financing, and it's totally legal. Okay, and you're going to buy it subject to. Okay, morning, Charles. Morning, Tony. I know you guys both sent us some leads, I believe, and I want to follow up and give you the news. So yes, they went really well, and I have notes, so I'm not sure who we got a hold of or anything, but if you could send me, like I said, guys, it would just really help me. I'm trying to organize everything and catch up with everything from the event. So if you could send me an email today at wolfcouple@gmail.com and just say, even if you could say the addresses of the leads that you sent, that'd be extra helpful, or at least how many leads you sent, as I try to make sure I'm covering and giving you guys a good report. Okay. So again, and again in 2 months. So you guys who did not turn in leads, you'll get another shot in December to turn in leads, and we'll be calling more leads. So I love doing it. And so what I talked about today was sort of when you're looking for your farm area, what do you want to look at? And that's why it's almost good to have 2 farm areas. It's almost good to have an area where you can buy houses for literally like 50 to 150, and also maybe have a farm area where you're buying properties over 350. Now, the ones you're buying over 350, the only strategy you're using is seller financing, and hopefully they have a low payment. Okay. And then the other ones, though, if you're buying something that's 50 to 150, you could probably go out and get a new mortgage on it and still have it cash flow if you're buying in the right area. Okay. So start thinking about that. Start thinking where you want to target your leads. And thank you guys so much again for turning in leads. I always really appreciate that big time. And you guys are great at doing it. So I really, really appreciate it. So guys, it is October 10th today, Friday, October 10th, and it is National Angel Food Care, National Love Your Hair Day, National Haunted House Day, National Music Day. Oh no, Metric Day, sorry. There's always all these great days, guys. I didn't look at them beforehand. So there's always a good one. There's always a few good one. World Mental Health Day. Okay, I love that one. That's the one I'm going to focus on. World Mental Health Day. So guys, how do you maintain your mental health? What are the two best techniques to maintain your mental health and stay positive? Visualization and affirmations. Affirmations is really primary. So if it's World Mental Health Day, what are we going to do? We're going to use a lot of affirmations. I feel great today. I feel mentally strong. My mind is powerful. I believe in myself. I have faith in myself. I am going to achieve my goals. And you can just, guys, aren't those all great affirmations? You can just do one affirmation after another. That really builds up your mental health. So if I say Mental Health Day, that to me means say lots of affirmations and visualizations. Okay. So I said hi to Charles. Hi to Tony. Hey, Jennifer, good morning to you. And Charles, we have a seller who wants $200,000 for a home in La Plata, Florida, with wiggle room. They need $10,000 to move. PITI is $1,750, can get $2,200 a month. We like a $500 a month spread, guys. So that's right in that perfect range there. ARV is $259. How would you work this out for the 10K? Well, if it was me, guys, I would write a check. I would write a check for this 10K and I would close quickly. Now, I don't know what your guys' approach is and how long she gave you. Now, if she gave you a long time on this deal, I would prefer that you own it. In Florida, you have doc stamps. So doc stamps are going to cost you you're going to pay about 3% in closing costs. We have a student in Florida who just buys everything on lease purchase and does a 3-year term with a 3-year extension. So basically does everything as a 6-year lease, sandwich lease purchase, and never pays closing costs. And so there's some things I'd want you to know about that. Guys, if you're doing a sandwich lease purchase, make sure you get a lien on the property right when you record with your title company, showing that you have a stake, a vested interest in the property. Otherwise, when the mortgage company comes back later to finance your buyer, they will ignore you. Okay. And the other thing is have the seller go ahead and sign the deed over to you and have escrow instructions that say, as soon as the mortgage is paid off, this new deed will be recorded. That way you don't have to chase them down later. Those are two key tips for doing sandwich lease purchases. Another thing, guys, I want you to normally, though, get the deed or get the door. I like that deal. I like a lot of things about that deal, but are you going to come up with the 10 grand down to the seller and, what would probably be another 8 in closing costs or something like that, or more? So that's the question. If you want to avoid, here's another thing you can do. If you need to get that 10,000 and you don't have it, you have the seller on clause 18 of the purchase and sales agreement. They write this clause. You write it in. It says, seller shall allow buyer access to property for showings prior to closing. Seller shall allow buyer access to property for showings prior to closing. Then set your closing date up for 30 days out. I don't know if this house is by you. If it's like within driving distance with you, then you're going to do private showings. You're going to get it up on Zillow after you have it under contract and after you've recorded the new deed. Then you're going to get it on a lockbox and start showing it immediately. Now, it's another little wrinkle if the seller still lives in there. It doesn't wreck the deal. You can still do it, but it's another little wrinkle. Okay, so if it's vacant, though, you can just stick it on a lockbox and people can just drive out and at their leisure go and see it. And then you can, sell it that way. That's called self showings. Or if you're local, you can do what we call private showings, which means take the phone call. And if they have 10 grand or more down, go meet them at the house. Okay, that's a private showing. Or you can even do a 1-hour open house. But if you need to collect that 10 plus closing costs before you close, because you don't have it in the bank right now, then that's the strategy. Write in on number 18, seller shall allow buyer access to property for showings prior to closing. Then post it on Zillow as soon as you can. Start taking calls, and everywhere else, start taking calls, and then start setting up showings. Tell the seller you'll call them and give them as much notice as you can, usually 24-hour notice. This is if they still live in there. If they don't live in there, you don't have to worry about it, okay? And so then you can actually collect the person's, as soon as you get somebody who wants that property, you can collect their non-refundable option deposit immediately, like that day. Like you can follow them over to the bank and take their 20,000, hopefully. So that's what I'd be shooting for on this house. Get 20,000 down, use that $20,000 for the 10,000 to the seller and closing costs. Okay, so that's if you don't have it. Otherwise, like I say with me and Lynette, this is a great deal. I wouldn't miss it. So I wouldn't even mess around with that. I would just, set it up at closing and bite the bullet and write the check for whatever it's going to take to close it, including giving the seller 10 grand. And then if the house needs a little patching up, I would patch it up and then stick somebody in there and collect hopefully 20,000 down to make up my expenses. So I have a positive return on investment going in, which is pretty much unheard of, by the way, guys. People buying rental properties don't normally think I'm going to have a positive influx of cash buying this thing. But when you do the lease purchase exit strategy where you collect a big option deposit up front, that's exactly what can happen. You can actually, within a couple of weeks of buying the house, you're actually in the black. Hey, I always love to see Caleb here. Happy Friday, Caleb and Nick. Good to see you, buddy. I don't know if you guys been here the whole time, but I hope you caught all this, a lot of good tips today, talking about the different price ranges too. Got it. So get the door. Got it. So get the door. Not do a long-term lease option. And what would you do for this deal? Yes. And again, guys, I mean, I understand why people would do a lease option, and you do avoid closing costs. But if you do a sandwich lease option, you still have to come up with that 10,000 that, they still want it. And you just don't have as much of a position as power when you don't own the property. So I do like to own it. So it's kind of like if you had the cash in the bank, I would just say, write a check and just go buy it. Okay. And pretty soon that cash will be replenished by the non-refundable option deposit. If cash was a consideration going in on this one, then I would write that clause in under number 18, seller shall allow buyer access to property for showings prior to closing. And then I would put it up on Zillow and everywhere as fast as I can and show it to as many people as I can. And I will get 30 days to close. And if it shows well and you're advertising bad credit, okay, you shouldn't have problems finding somebody hopefully with 20 grand. Okay, so that's a breakdown of that one. All right, so everybody, thank you so much for everybody who turned in leads. I really, really appreciate it. It really helps make that event great and helps us teach the students. And I will follow up with all of you guys. Please send me an email if you sent me leads, and just remind me either the name of the seller, the address, whatever, so I can make sure that we have accurate information to follow up with you. Okay, so let's keep it rolling, guys. Christmas is coming up. A lot of people are trying to get stuff done before Christmas, sell their house before Christmas. Let's make them happy. Let's buy it before Christmas. All right. So I love doing deals. Ready? 3 times on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I love doing deals. I love doing deals. I love doing deals. Yeah, deals are great. They're fun and we're so rewarding. Okay, and you're helping people. Okay, 3 deep breaths. Nice deep breath in. Good. Hold it a little bit and then let it go. Another one. Real deep. And let it go. And one more. That's really good for you. It's refreshing and invigorating. So don't forget, deep breathing is a great technique. All right, guys. So have a great weekend. I love giving you guys tips on deals. If you have deals that you are working on, for sure put them in the chat here, and I would love to comment. So I will have a great weekend until I see you on Monday. Keep expecting success, getting awesome training from the Wolf Couple, and